What is up, everybody? We're talking UGA football schedule for 2023. I'm not sure if you've heard this or not, Clint,
Okay.
but the schedule is soft. Oh, Lord, it is soft. Georgia doesn't play anybody, and some people are all up in their feelings about it. Do we care about how people feel about this schedule?
I don't care one bit about anything, Daniel,
No.
except winning football games.
Winning football games. How many of those football games are Georgia going to win in 2023? That's what we're going to talk about today. And which ones might they trip up with today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast?
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On Podcast. More on them in a moment with Super Bowl coming up. But Daniel, we are talking UGA football schedule, not scholarships. That's John Garcia. We're talking scholarship athletes. He'll be next week. We're talking schedule, Daniel. For next season, what it looks like. People bemoaning this. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the top 3 games we think Georgia could slip up the most in. We're not predicting slip-ups.
Be
Daniel.
careful.
Let's
make
sure
how you
understand.
phrase this.
Because we understand something that on Twitter, people don't like research, don't like numbers.
Well, when you give them research, they tend to like it a little less.
They like it a little less when you just say, here's...
Your coordinators are bad.
Your coordinators are bad.
And our coordinators are good.
Our coordinators are fantastic. So we're going to talk about that schedule, Daniel. First, let's give the people what the schedule looks like, shall we? We start off the year not hot. UT Martin coming into town.
Listen, it's the bird has goggles on. You understand? Birds typically fly through the air anyway, but this bird wearing a full aviator helmet, goggles, and everything, you got to respect him for it. We go on to another bird, no goggles, Ball State Cardinal, second week, and then the SEC schedule kicks off with South Carolina at home, followed by UAB, another cupcake, and then at Auburn, home against Kentucky, at Vanderbilt, Florida in Jacksonville, Mizzou at home, Ole Miss at home, and then finishing the season on the road at Neyland Stadium, and then a home game in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. Let's just get this out of the way. Prediction for next season is 12-0, nay 15-0, back-to-back national champions. That's the official prediction of the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Georgia's not losing the game on this schedule. I do not believe that they will. You do not believe that they will. We've spoken about this at length.
We're going perfect again throughout the SEC, throughout all this schedule. Doesn't matter who they put on the schedule. We could have kept the games that the SEC...
Oklahoma, the SEC wouldn't let us play Oklahoma because the SEC doesn't want Oklahoma to get scared. See, sometimes I just get so scared. I'm sorry, baby. Please come back. Sometimes I just get so scared. It's what Oklahoma would have said had they played Georgia. But they're not playing Georgia this year. Oklahoma dodges a bullet. Georgia, meanwhile, is going to go 12-0 and walk through this schedule. But let's talk about the 3 games that they could lose. Because, listen, 12-0 is certainly not a lock. It's certainly not a
it's the SEC,
certainty.
Daniel.
It's college football, 1. It's the SEC, 2. And these are 18 to 22-year-old kids, 3, many of whom we've not seen play meaningful football before at Georgia. And so there's a lot of variables to this Georgia season.
A lot of variables.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the 3rd most likely game for Georgia to slip up, or do you want to not rank these? Do you want to just give them?
I want to rank
people?
these. I want to rank them. Let's start with the teams that people are telling us may slip up, that we can say definitively are not on our radar. Daniel. Okay.
Okay. Teams that Georgia cannot lose to this year.
Yeah. Ready?
Okay. I'm going to start.
Please.
Are you ready?
I am.
It's your South Carolina Gamecocks in week 3.
Oh, no.
There is no shot. And listen very carefully. No shot that the University of Georgia loses at home to South Carolina. South Carolina lost a ton off of this team. I'm not sure if you know about South Carolina, but the recruiting has been strong. The recruiting has been strong, caveat, for South Carolina. It has not been on the level of the Georgias or Alabama. South Carolina is not to the level of reloading yet. And so you lose a ton of productivity off this team. I know they got a couple guys in the transfer portal. I know they got a couple of guys in recruiting. I know Shane Beamer gets his team to play hard, gets his team to play motivated, inspired football. But week 3 at home, SEC opener for the University of Georgia.
Yep.
The only thing that scares you about South Carolina is how early it is in the season, and it's the Carson Beck factor of, does Georgia have its quarterback position fully settled in? But I'm going to say no chance that South Carolina competes and beats Georgia.
Okay, here's the deal. Here's why South Carolina is on the red. I'm not going to list it as one of the 3, but Daniel, it is coming out for UT Martin Ball State early on in the season, and then South Carolina hits. I know it's a home game. That's the benefit. Rattler coming back, and I'm not saying he's an all-world beater. I'm not saying that, but he did beat a couple of good teams, and Shane Beamer's there. This is what I'm saying. It's not as ludicrous as I'm going to go to a different.
Nary a single player that Spencer Rattler threw a pass to last year coming back.
I understand that.
All of them players gone.
I'm going to go. We ain't losing to Florida, y'all.
Yikes.
Like
Billy. Be serious, Billy.
For just a second.
For 1 second, be real with us, Billy. Where are you going to coach next? Billy? Because it's coming soon. Florida fans will not abide by this. They will not. This is a proud fan base. They will not abide.
Proud or arrogant and stubborn and thick-headed.
All can be synonymous.
3 things can be the truth.
Florida fans will not abide by this for very long. You understand? Billy ain't it. Billy has apparently a first-round quarterback on the roster last year and is able to do absolutely nothing with him. And now this team's going to be worse than last year's team.
They're worse.
They're going to be worse.
Okay, that's unique.
Yeah, okay.
That's unique.
So Georgia's not losing that game. Despite what, journalists will tell you.
Please.
And I use the term as loosely as anyone's ever used the term before. Georgia, the toughest game on Georgia's schedule is not on the road at historic Grant Field in Atlanta, Georgia, on the flats.
Okay.
Georgia's not losing to Georgia Tech. Okay. That's not a thing that's happening. Now, do I think Georgia Tech made a great hire in the offseason replacing Collins with this guy? What's his name? Key? Is that his name?
Key.
I can't remember his name.
Key, the interim coach, Key.
Interim coach, promoted to head coach. Do I think that was a great hire? I think it was a superb hire by Georgia Tech. Do I think Georgia Tech's going to be a heck of a lot better than they were last year? I do think they're going to be better than they were last year. But Georgia's not losing that game in Atlanta. There will be more Georgia fans there than Georgia Tech fans. That is a given. It's this case every year when Georgia plays in Atlanta. Georgia's not losing that game.
Yes, I 100% agree. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the games that Georgia might stumble in. But first, I'll let you know about FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they are the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. #1.
That's like us. Like they won the national championship.
They're the Georgia of sports books.
Of sports betting. It's unbelievable.
They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel so you can bet on sports and Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown We love FanDuel. We are huge sports betting folk. We like the sports book, and they're the official sports book of Locked On Podcast and Locked On Bulldogs. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn.
All right, Clint.
Yes.
It's tough. It's tough to choose three teams. But I'm going to start with the most obvious. And that is Week 11 on the road at Tennessee.
Okay, here we go.
It is the most obvious place that Georgia could, not will, but could slip up. Here's why it gives you pause.
Okay, tell me.
Do we think Joe Milton's a good quarterback on this podcast?
No.
I'm sorry, but he has a howitzer for an arm.
I'm fine with that. He
He
does.
can
I
throw
will
the
give it
ball
to you.
100 miles off his back foot, Clint. Do we think he's a good quarterback, though?
No, because
we don't.
quarterbacking is different than having a howitzer.
And specifically in a Josh Heupel system, having a strong arm doesn't matter. Do you know who would have been an awesome quarterback in a Josh Heupel system? Stetson Bennett would have been an amazing quarterback in a Josh Heupel. Hendon Hooker, amazing quarterback in a Josh Heupel system.
I saw a stat the other day that he had more balls that were caught but not accurate than most other SEC quarterbacks, meaning his wide receivers made up a lot for his deficiency within that offense.
Well, Jalen Hyatt does a lot for a lot of people.
That's true.
In that offense. Joe Milton's not good, but this is Week 11. I mean, number one, it's in Knoxville. We should start there. Number one, it's at Neyland Stadium. The place is going to be, you saw it with the Alabama game this year, especially after what Georgia did to them in Sanford. When Tennessee fans thought they were going to come and checkerboard that thing, when they thought they were going to come in and take over Sanford Stadium, when all week all I was hearing about was Tennessee fans are buying up all them tickets. Listen, especially after the way they were embarrassed, not as a football team, as a fan base. They were embarrassed in Athens last year. Those fans for that game are going to be rabid. Clint.
It's going to be one of the most hostile environments. You thought mustard bottles and golf balls were a problem? Y'all,
if that thing is at night,
no.
I'm just telling you right now, Georgia will have never played in an atmosphere on the road like it ever. And that's, you might say, Daniel, it sounds like you're giving a lot of respect to Tennessee fans. In this regard, I am. They are lunatics. They are lunatics.
Yes.
About Tennessee football, and this game will mean everything to them. I don't suspect that Tennessee's going to be great next year, but I do think that they will be in a position where this game might still mean something for them. They might be coming in this game with just one loss. They might be coming in this game maybe with just two losses, but still looking at the possibility of playing in a New Year's Six game if they pull out this win. Week 11 in Knoxville, and then Joe Milton will have had all season to figure out and work out everything that he's possibly capable of working out. Now, I don't think that's going to make him as good as Hendon Hooker. I don't think he'll ever be as good as Hendon Hooker in that offense. But it will allow him to be better than he'll be at the beginning of the season. Josh Heupel will continue to develop him because that's what he does. He does actually develop quarterbacks.
Again,
unlike Billy Napier. He does his job. He coaches. So it's a game that should scare you if you're a Georgia fan.
Again, going back to the previously mentioned Carson Beck, first-year starter on the road with 100,000 fans blaring down with vitriol hate. It's
a concern.
Pause.
You might want to pause. All right, where are you going next?
Here's my second, the most, and Daniel, you would think I would say Kentucky because I say Kentucky every single year.
Please don't. Do us all a favor and don't.
It's not Kentucky.
They're not even a sleeper on the schedule.
Not even a sleeper. No. It's at Auburn, Daniel. It's at Auburn. It's
People
again
not going to like it.
Early in the season. We are going to Jordan-Hare. And
Michael Jordan Hare Stadium.
It's going
Space
to be
Jam, Auburn grad's favorite movie, Space Jam.
Superior Space Jam, not this remake stuff.
Yeah, old man alert.
Yes. Hi.
Jordan Hare Stadium, Auburn on the road.
New
it's
coach.
A scary game.
A coach that, just like Josh Heupel, can do some things offensively. Okay. He's proven it.
He can do lots of things. Only some of them we're allowed to talk about on this family-friendly podcast.
He's offensive in all that he does.
Yeah. Oh, he's quite offensive morally. But on the field, he is an offensive coach.
Correct. These two things true at the same time now. Now we're going from 3 to 2. Soon, next segment, we'll just do one thing that's true.
Only one thing.
It's at Auburn. Again, on the road, early in the season, another Carson Beck test and another team that can have some offense. And that's what you need against Georgia. You're not going to get into a defensive slug out with them. We have too many Brock Bowers guys. We have too many running backs. It's not going to get in that slugfest. The one hiccup could be, again, that Carson Beck hiccup, but I think we have other guys in the roster. We're going to find a quarterback that can sling it around the yard, Daniel. That's not going to be my issue.
Yeah. The question is Auburn going to find a quarterback that can sling it around the yard? Because if they do,
watch out.
I'm telling you, Hugh Freeze can coach. He can coach football now.
Guys.
So
that's where we're going.
It's an issue. All right, we're going to come back segment 3. We're going to talk about the last team that we think Georgia could stumble to. It's somebody that if you don't have the schedule pulled up in front of you, you might have forgotten even that we're playing. You might not even be thinking about them at all, but you should be thinking about them a little bit. We're going to talk about that right after we come back. But first, we're going to talk about Built Bar?
No, we're just going to come back.
Oh, we're just going to come back. We're just come back. And we're back. We did it. We came back. We were gone. Now we're back. We didn't talk about anything. There's no need to talk about anything.
Daniel, you
too many people are talking about things these days.
Look, that's the one truth. Too many people saying things.
There's too many. We have access to too much information.
Everybody walking around like they got something to say. But
the 199
comes out when they move their lips. It's a bunch of gibberish.
It's true.
But they forgot about Dre.
Bonfire.com/store/the 199. That's where you can go get the Death March t-shirt, get the Curbonese t-shirt.
We're going to have that on tomorrow. You're going to see my Death March t-shirt tomorrow.
Loyal third segment listeners know.
Okay, Daniel, you teased the people saying that many people have forgotten this game was on the schedule, but it's on there. It's blaring to us. This team that nobody knows or forgotten who we played. Who is the team that we might slip up against? If it's not Tennessee, it's not Auburn. Who is it?
It's Old Miss, Clint. It's Old Miss, the oldest of all the misses.
I don't like how you phrased that.
It's a trap game. Number one, it's week 10, right before we go on the road to play at Tennessee. Number two, it's Lane Kiffin. You know he's going to be up for this game. Number three, Ole Miss is probably going to have a pretty dang good football team this year. Now, people are talking about what a weak schedule Georgia plays, but Ole Miss might be the second best team in the West next year. They might be the second best team in the West behind LSU.
There it is.
Next year. In case we still have any Alabama fans listening to the pod. Ole Miss is a team that has got some weapons. They've got players coming back, unlike teams like South Carolina that I referenced earlier. They've got quite a few players coming back. Lane Kiffin, rumored to go every other job in America, like he's going to take all these jobs. Lane Kiffin back, ready to do it again, seemingly committed to the long term at Ole Miss. And I think he's going to have a lot to prove next year. I think he's going to come out, and I think this team's just going to be pretty good. I think the quarterback development is going to be the key for Ole Miss. Yep. But when they figure that out, which I trust Lane Kiffin, I guess, to do, I think they're going to be a pretty formidable team. Now, again, I don't think they're on the level of Georgia, and at Sanford Stadium, I don't expect Georgia to lose this game. But don't fool yourself, Georgia fans, into thinking this is a game Georgia cannot lose, because they absolutely can go out and lose to Ole Miss.
Look, Remember that cat? Lane Kiffin's supposed to be this savant throwing the ball everywhere else, yada, yada, yada. And remember when Judkins just came in here and said, how about I run all over the SEC?
He
just everywhere. He's coming back, Daniel. He was a freshman last year.
Jackson Dart also coming back.
They're going to be improved. They're going to be a better team, and they have a running game. Now, again, you're going to say to me, Georgia fan, well, nobody can run on Georgia. Nobody can run on Kirby. Nobody can run on. I know that. I get that. I understand. However,
but let's also just slow our roll for a second and say no one has been able to run on Georgia.
See,
you've never seen the 2023 Georgia defense. You've never seen them. All I'm telling you is you don't know. The world didn't know what the 2022 Georgia defense was going to be. They thought they were going to take a massive step backwards in 2022. They did not, because no one had ever seen them. And then they came out on the field and balled out. We've never seen the 2023 Georgia defense.
Have no clue.
We know that Trey Scott is very good at his job.
Insanely good at his job.
We know that there's a lot of really good players on the front seven. We know that Kirby Smart prioritizes things like stopping the run.
Yep.
But we've never seen, and Ole Miss might be the best running team we play all year. And so, if anybody's going to run the ball against Georgia,
it's that team.
It's that team.
Tennessee's going to give up on it real quick. I can promise you.
Oh, Hupel's ego will not allow him.
Wow. Look, those are the three teams. It is Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss have the three likeliest chances if we were able to name an opponent for the SEC championship. And if it is, in fact, LSU, that would be the most likely loss of the season for Georgia. But since we can't do
I think at Tennessee is more likely than in the SEC championship against LSU, to be honest with you.
Really?
I do. I think on the road in Neyland Stadium against Tennessee, even though, again, I don't think Tennessee's going to be as good this year as they were last year. But I think Week 11 on the road, Neyland Stadium at Tennessee, is a more likely Georgia loss than an SEC championship game against LSU.
Okay.
I do.
That's a hot take.
Is it?
No, not really.
I think Ole Miss at home is a more likely loss than an SEC championship game against Alabama. If we're going to talk about things like that.
Well, hold on. Alabama.
This just in: if Georgia loses to Ole Miss at home in Week 10, it might be a rematch in the SEC championship game against Ole Miss.
This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We will see you guys tomorrow.
See you then.